So next we have Cathy Justus, who's come all the way over from Pagosa. Cathy owned the first horse to ever be diagnosed with chronic fluoride poisoning from artificially fluoridated water. This discovery was because of her due diligence and almost 30 years of observation and research, which makes Cathy uniquely qualified in the field of fluoride toxicity because of her first-hand experience. The time and money spent was certainly not by choice, but by a desperate need to save her animals. Cathy and her husband Wayne ultimately lost 8 horses and 4 dogs to chronic fluoride poisoning. This was scientifically proven by Dr. Leonard Crook, PhD, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine from Cornell University. Dr. Crook was well known as the world's authority and expert on fluoride poisoning in animals. There were other horses and dogs lost, and many of their friends suffered, and some even died from the very same ills their animals suffered. It was because of her efforts and discoveries that were scientifically proven that fluoridation was ended in Pagosa Springs after 20 years. There have been an editorial and 2 peer-reviewed scientifically published manuscripts in the journal Fluoride, the quarterly journal of the International Society for Fluoride Research, a short documentary called Poisoned Horses, which is great if you haven't seen that, produced by Dr. David Kennedy and the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology, and many articles published worldwide on the Justus fluoride discoveries and research. Cathy is on the executive advisory board of Second Look for Fluoride Poisoning, and is the national spokesperson against fluoride poisoning in animals. Cathy Justus.
This is distilled water with hibiscus and mint tea. No sugar. I want to start out by reading this. It's a letter from a professor at UC Davis to another professor. It's about their statistical frauds class that he had. I'm just going to read sections of it. Thank you for your telephone inquiry about my course on statistical frauds and the Statistical Frauds Group. We investigated all manner of questionable statements and activities, some qualitative and most of them quantitative. We conducted interviews and collected published matter and analyzed all these using standard statistical procedures. In addition to deliberate frauds, errors in judgment or method were examined. We looked over statements by manufacturers or purveyors of consumer goods, but a very copious source was papers in medical research journals. Particularly good examples of blatant statistical misconduct were found in the Public Health Service reports. The announced opinions in published papers favoring mechanical fluoridation of public drinking water are especially rich in fallacies, improper design, invalid use of statistical methods, omission of contrary data, and just plain muddle-headedness and hebetude. Many of the blunders were so glaring that I gave them to my beginning freshman classes in statistics at the very first meeting. The students see through them straight away and are afforded great amusement. Uproarious laughter frequently ensues. No special statistical equipment is necessary to detect those peccancies. Of course, the class and the group soon tired of these infantilities and sought and found greater challenge. By the way, the study by John Yamianis and Dean Burke on possible connection between cancer and waterborne fluoride was fairly tightly reasoned. The statistical procedures were standard and much better applied than in much of the public health work. As I pointed out in a letter published in the proceedings of a congressional committee investigating the above connection, the real point is that direct chemical and controlled experimental research by unbiased, uncommitted agencies is urgently indicated. Clearly, fluoridation should be discontinued everywhere until definitive results on safety is obtained. In this connection, a great source of entertainment to the group was the ferocity with which the researchers attacked my criticism. Invariably, they violated in their own work the very principles they insisted on others' work. And I've gotten a lot of that. I mean, we've been accused of bringing in sick horses to do what we did. No such thing. The group found that connections for age, race, etc. were applied in a most perfunctory and indiscriminate manner without regard to whether they appertained to the given situation. Every campus should have a group like this. I thought that was pretty neat that his first class would see right through this. When I started on this, I didn't want fluoridation to be the problem with the horses because I knew that it was going to be hard to get the whole town up and going and get it stopped. So I looked at the pro side of the issue, and it was so blatant. You know, it was just blatant what they do to promote this stuff. I'm going to read through this and then I'll start on the other. Thank you, John, for going over the Cochrane review. That's a majorly important research that happened in 2015. That was commissioned with our tax dollars through the CDC to end the controversy over fluoridation once and for all. And when they got the results back that they found that fluoridation does not work, instead of putting that out to the public, which they're supposed to do when they find information, they have put that aside and have gone to paid for industry commissioned research to keep promoting fluoridation. Okay. I never thought that my life would be rerouted the way fluoride is done. I never spoke in front of people before this whole situation. I didn't even know I could. I'm here because I don't want anyone or anything else to have to go through the hell that we went through. I was raised to be independent of the good or bad opinion of others, listen, and then go do my own research to make up my own mind and find the truth for me. The old saying of knowledge is power is only half a truth. If you don't use and share what you learn, it's all for naught, and that's why I'm here. We stopped fluoridation. I don't need to be here, but that's why I do this. I was also brought up following my dad's lead in learning about health and how to retain that health for me and my animals. It was through this that I first learned about fluoride's toxicity from my dad when I was a little kid. I was one of those weird kids who really like learning about this kind of stuff. Unless due diligence is done, you won't have control of your life or your health or your family, that of your family and pets. Allowing someone else to control this is a big gamble. No one's going to take care of you like you. Treating symptoms is what most medical, dental, and veterinary professionals have been taught to do. That will never cure or resolve anything unless you find the cause and remove that cause. Your ailments will continue to promulgate and it'll get worse and worse and worse. We've been lied to for almost 70 years by the made-up proposition that fluoride keeps you from getting cavities, and it is made up. There is no research that other than paid-for research that shows that it actually keeps you from getting cavities. Twisting and changing the truth by using their authority and denigrating anyone who challenges them is the fluoride proponent's angle. Profit is the bottom line, and you get to carry this known developmental toxin to your early grave while they profit by treating the symptoms it caused or through being paid to promote it. What a deal. Real science, not arguable by either side of the issue, reveals that fluoride is just slightly less poisonous than arsenic and just slightly more poisonous than lead. The problem is it's cumulative like lead, and it's the accumulation that is killing you. You can have an acute poisoning from fluoride, and there are people that are allergic to it that do have acute poisonings often. But it's for the general public. It's not like you drink this glass. It's not made of fluoridated water, but it's right now or kill you right now. And that's the problem. People, if it's not an immediate thing, they don't want to jump in there and do something about it. Well, who wants to die a death laying in a bed, in pain. I don't want to do that. A little bit today, a little bit tomorrow. Eventually, when the symptoms start to appear, the harm is done and not easily reversible. And since most doctors, dentists, and vets are never taught the biochemistry or the toxicology of fluoride, or even admit that it does any harm to your body, they just point to the symptoms, and if you die of that symptom, say for instance cancer, oh, they died of cancer. Does anybody say they died of cancer caused by fluoride? No. 99% of the people will never have, on autopsy, bone taken to see how much fluoride is in the bone. As long as it's in your body, it's poisoning. Poison's going in, it poisons while it's there, and being that it accumulates in your bone cell turnover is the slowest. So it's accumulating every day, adding. If you have perfectly functioning kidneys, you will release 50%, but you're still retaining 50%. So 50% today, 50% tomorrow, it adds up pretty quick. And that's just from fluoridated water. If we talk about all the other sources of fluoride too. The authorities and the proponents never ever, they always say, oh, we're just putting a little bit in the water. It's not much, it's not a big deal. They never consider, that's the concentration in the water. They never considered the dose. How many people drink this amount of water, fluoridated water, would be the same amount in a pea-sized amount, which it says on your fluoridated toothpaste, if swallowed in control center immediately. That's the same amount as in 1 glass of water. Is there on your water quality report, do they say if you swallow more than 1 glass of water, call the poison control center immediately? No. So that's the whole situation, the concentration versus dose. Not everybody drinks the same amount. Some people drink a lot. Some people work outside when it's hot. They drink a whole lot more, so they're accumulating a lot more. I'm certainly not saying that fluoride is the cause of all ailments, and you'll find out here that there are a ton of ailments that it's been scientifically proved to cause. But fluoride has been proven to be the #1 most consumed toxin there is, far and above any other. That kind of puts it at the top of the heap for causing bodily harm. Fluoride is well-known systemic poison. It changes the enzymes needed to catalyze every bodily function. It also kills enzymes. Enzymes, they come in different shapes, like you have liver enzymes that they fit into it like a key, into the hole. And when fluoride changes the shape of it, it can't fit. So that starts a whole thing. Okay, now my liver's not working properly. What's that going to turn into? It displaces iodine that your thyroid uses to make thyroxine. There are iodine receptors on every cell in your body. You have to have iodine. It changes the collagen system, which is basically the glue that holds the body together. By doing so, it harms your bones, your teeth, your skin, your everything. It breaks the protein bonds in the DNA. Now that's a bad one, changing your DNA. It also kills, damages the DNA repair system. So if you've got damaged, God created a perfect thing. If the DNA gets harmed, then you have a DNA system to jump in there and take care of it. But if you don't have either one of those, you got a problem. The list goes on and on and on. It's a domino effect of all the systemic things that fluoride does. Here's just a few of the, this is just a few of the symptoms that our horses and dogs manifested during the 20 years of fluoridation. I want you to think about how many of these used to be scarce, are not scarce anymore. Think about how with each generation they seem to be more and more common. Now, when I was growing up, I didn't know any children with cancer. Now they've got hospitals just for children with cancer. So it's getting earlier and earlier. Coincidence? No. And with our horses, we showed that with each generation that symptoms became sooner and were worse as they came, and a lot of times they were born with it. My research and that of thousands of independent researchers worldwide proves otherwise, that fluoride is not what you need to have. Okay, you're ready for this. Colic. Colic was the first symptom that came with our horses. Colic is deadly in horses. It's not a good thing. And it could be any of the horses at any time, day, night, anytime. It was awful. And I mean, the pain would hit them so bad that they would be walking along and fall to the ground. They would be hurting so bad. Acid reflux, burping. We had 2 horses that burped. Horses are not built to burp. They shouldn't be burping. Why are they burping? It's because of what fluoride does. Fluoride, when you consume fluoride, it turns hydrochlorone fascia, creating spurs. Soft tissue like ligaments, tendons, cartilage, and skin hardening, doctors will call scleroderma. Broken bones, fibromyalgia, skin allergy, diarrhea, reproduction problems, and hormone problems, deformed fetuses, abortions, lack of and off heat cycles, continuous milk production, even in mares, yearling mares that had never ever obviously been bred, they would start dripping milk. Lack of heat cycles, cryptorchids, early onset of puberty, thyroid problems including extremely low T4, chronically elevated parathyroid hormone levels, which degraded collagen ground substance and therefore less release of minerals for use, and other endocrine system dysfunctions, abscesses, which were pretty much continuous. They would ooze out their what are they called? Adrenal gland, or your lymph nodes. Aneurysms, neurological problems and seizures, head shaking, malocclusion of teeth, TMJ, dental fluorosis, gum recession, teeth chipping and breaking, kidney problems, equine metabolic syndrome and Cushing's disease, laminitis, malformation of hooves, lowered liver function by displaced calcium in the hepatocytes, chronic coughing and lung problems, Alzheimer's, heart attacks, and arterial sclerosis, personality and attitude changes for the worst, cataracts and blindness, greatly reduced immune system functions, lowered energy level, autoimmune problems, enzyme depletion needed for proper body functions, chronic wasting disease, weakness, fatigue, and the list goes on. This is not even all of them, that's just the major ones.
Which we don't have anymore.
We don't have it anymore when fluoridation stopped. So I'm going to go through here and show you pictures. I'm very low tech. Can you tell? I don't have one of these. I wish I did. This is Belle. In 1998, or 1986 rather, she had a filly. We had to haul her to California to breed again to an 8-time world champion. And 2 days before the filly was 2 months old, she suddenly died. And this was at a ranch where they have people going through the foaling barn every hour on the hour taking temperatures, so that it wasn't something that came on. The hour before, her temperature was fine, and she just died. So the owner of the ranch called the vet. The vet called me and said, "What do you want me to do?" And I said, "Well, I want a necropsy. I want to know what happened." And he said, "Well, okay." So he cut her open, the filly, and called me right back, and he said, "Okay, I've got her laying here open. What I see is every organ on her body has big pussy sores on it. What I always do when I send off things to the lab is I send it to several labs, because then I have a comparison to look at." So I said, "Fine, do that." And he said, "What I feel we're going to find is either a bacteria, a virus, or parasites that did this to her." So it was probably 3 weeks later, we get all the test results back. He calls me up and he said they all came back negative for nothing. We cannot find anything. Now let me preface this. For you to find a lab in the United States that knows how to test for chronic fluoride poisoning is next to impossible. They're not taught how to do it. So there we go. We lost this great filly, and that was the end of that. This is Bird. She was absolutely a beautiful, beautiful filly. We got her when she was 3 weeks old. She was nursing Belle when we got her, and Belle was in foal. had been bred on her foal heat. She had chronic colics, head shaking, skeletal fluorosis, totally lame by the time she was 12. Any of you that have seen the Poison Horses DVD, she's the sorrel mare that has chronic wasting, that she was extremely thin but despite eating all the time and could barely balance. She had trouble balancing. She had her body would just lock up. She couldn't move without just cracking and popping. She had big bone spasms on her knees that had developed. You can see them, which is a metabolic syndrome when you're caused by inflammation, when your body is not functioning properly. She had anemia, dental fluorosis, and gum recession, which I'll show you in the tooth report from Dr. Krupp. Had very labored breathing, and that was what ultimately killed her. She had laid down and she couldn't get up, and physically could not get up. And her ribs, that give when you breathe, they were so fused together that she couldn't get in enough air to go, she couldn't, and that was it. She had one foal for us, and we never could get her in foal again. Hoof deformities. This is not what a normal hoof looks like. Right here should be on the ground. All of this should be on the ground.
It turned to rock.
Huh?
It turned
It turned to rock, yeah. Wayne does all our farrier work, and it was as hard as a rock. Here's another picture. Keeping this trimmed off so it didn't just turn up. That was something that Dr. Krupp, that I had read about his previous thing, because he had done tons of research on cows, that they said that their feet turned up like elves' feet. Well, that's what hers did. This was, when she died, we sent her leg to Dr. Krupp. He sliced it. This was the front of the hoof. This is the back of the hoof. Anybody that looks, doesn't look like a hoof at all, in any way, shape, or form. She lived for another year. Well, we finally found a source for clean river water in 2004. So we started hauling clean, unprocessed river water in 2004, March of 2004, and fluoridation was ended in 2005. She died in 2006. So she had a year of no fluoridation being put in, and 2 years of non-fluoridated water that she could drink. All that hair started falling out. She had a gorgeous hair coat when she died, because all that Cushing's hair fell out. Colic ceased, diarrhea ceased, and we saw that with all of our horses that we had the problem. This is Satin. She was born in 19. Started. This is her at a year and 5 months old. She started with this chronic colics, as all the horses did. In 2000, when she was 5 years old, she had an extremely small filly. This is one of the horses that developed the attitude problem. Until fluoridation started, she was just as sweet and kind and everything, and she got mad. She was mad at the world. And if you've read any of the research on how fluoride changes, by the time he was 5, his front fetlock, this would be considered the fetlock, your wrist. It'll turn it. But he was already grown. The vet said he'd never ever seen anything like that. This is him as he's grown. Now, interesting thing about Mr. is he was born the year after fluoridation started. So that meant fluoride does cross the placental barrier. So he was getting fluoride while he was being gestated. We've had horses for each of us for 55 years apiece. We've never had a stupid horse. And I hate to call him stupid, he just wasn't there. It was like, he just wasn't there. He didn't catch on. It got so bad after fluoridation went on that you could lead him out into the pasture with knee-high grass, and he would stand there like, I'm alive, but that's it. He wouldn't even look down to eat the grass. he just wasn't there. You'd lead him back into his stall where he stayed every night of his life with feed in the feeder, and if you didn't stick his head in the feeder, he would stand wherever you took the halter off and be standing there the next morning. When fluoridation stopped, well, we started hauling river water in 2004. About 2010, Wayne and I both noticed Mr's getting a brain. He's starting to think. He's actually making decisions on his own. He got to the point where he could, the buckles that you pull down that had a spring in it, he could reach out, unbuckle the buckle on his stall, and go around and let everybody else out. Now, my question is, how many people develop Alzheimer's? And Alzheimer's is now showing up in people that are 30 years old. But to have Alzheimer's, go to the doctor drugs them to oblivion, and that's the end of the thing. Instead of cleansing, and that's another thing, I developed a cleansing herb thing and did all kinds of things to get this stuff out of their body when the cells turned over as fast as I could, to bring back people's minds. Mr. is still alive. He's now 31 years old. He's gone blind. He has cataracts caused by the fluoride. But he still, I mean, one would think, well, if he's got cataracts, he'd just stand around and do nothing. No, he interacts. He's a horse. Where he didn't used to be a horse. Okay.